Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of our deep dive.
Yes, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Today, we're diving into the mechanics of setting goals, specifically looking at why our biggest, most exciting ambitions often just completely crash and burn.
Oh, it's such a universal experience.
Right. And we are drawing all our insights today from a really fantastic lesson over on Tim's English channel. It's titled Small Goals That Can Change Your Life.
It's a great piece of content.
It really is.
Yeah.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly why those massive promises we make to ourselves almost always fail, and, how shrinking your focus down to incredibly tiny habits might actually be the smartest way to change your life.
And I think the best part here is that we've tailored this specific conversation just for you, the English learner.
Exactly. We are keeping our vocabulary clear. The pace is going to be relaxed so you can naturally practice your listening skills while we explore some really fascinating psychology.
It really is the perfect setup. You get to immerse yourself in the language while we unpack a topic that, literally every person on Earth struggles with at some point.
Absolutely. So let's unpack this, because I want to start with a scenario from the source that I think is just deeply, universally human.
Oh, the Sunday night scenario.
Yes. Have you ever found yourself in this exact situation? It's Sunday night, you're feeling incredibly motivated, maybe you just watched an inspiring movie, and you make a giant promise to yourself.
You say, I am going to study English for 3 hours every single day.
Right. You might even go online right then and there to buy, a fancy new notebook and some expensive pens. You just feel like an absolute champion.
You're riding a massive wave of enthusiasm. In that moment, you genuinely believe you're going to transform overnight.
Yeah, you do. So Monday rolls around and you actually do it. You sit at your desk, you study for 3 hours, and you go to bed feeling victorious.
And then Tuesday comes.
All right, Tuesday's a bit harder. The enthusiasm is fading, but you push through and maybe you hit 2 hours. But then Wednesday arrives.
Ah, the infamous Wednesday.
Hmm.
By Wednesday, the initial rush of motivation is completely gone. You woke up tired, you had a stressful day at work, and you stop.
The brand new notebook and the expensive pens just sit there on your desk, completely ignored.
The Wednesday burnout. It happens to me, it happens to you, it happens to everyone.
It really does. But why? If we genuinely want to learn a language, why do we keep falling into this exact same trap?
Well, to understand how to succeed, we first have to look at the psychology of why we fail. Tim's English channel highlights a fascinating concept here.
Yeah, the illusion, right.
Exactly, an illusion created by our own brains. We almost always set our biggest goals when we're what we could call 100% awake. We're feeling happy, we're full of energy, the environment is perfectly calm.
It's almost like we're imagining an idealized version of ourselves, a version that never gets a headache, never gets stuck in traffic, and never feels exhausted.
Precisely. When you're sitting comfortably on your couch on a Sunday evening, your prefrontal cortex, that logical planning part of your brain, is just firing on all cylinders.
Imagining this perfect future.
Right. And here's the really tricky part. Just the act of planning that massive goal releases dopamine in your brain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you actually feel a sense of reward and accomplishment before you've done any real work.
Oh, that makes so much sense. That's why buying the pens feels so good. We get the chemical reward of studying just by, purchasing the supplies.
You get the reward, but reality is waiting for you on Wednesday. Because real life is messy. You make this grand plan when everything is easy, but you're not factoring in a bad day.
Right. What happens when the weather is terrible and it's raining?
Or what happens when you slept poorly, or your boss asks you to stay late, or your kids are sick.
The idealized version of yourself just disappears. And the tired, real version of yourself has to deal with the goal. And looking at a 3-hour study session when you're exhausted, it's just too much.
It really is.
I was actually trying to think of a good way to picture this, and it feels a bit like packing for a trip. On Sunday, you pack this massive 80-pound suitcase because you think you need everything.
And looks great sitting in your living room.
Exactly. But on Wednesday, you're forced to drag that massive suitcase up a steep hill in the rain.
That is a great way to visualize it. On a good day, you have the strength to pull the suitcase. But on a low-energy day, your brain looks at that heavy weight, does a quick calculation of the energy required, and simply says, no.
It just refuses.
Right, I cannot pull that today. It triggers a stress response. So what do? You drop the suitcase entirely. You do nothing.
And doing nothing is what breaks the habit. We have this all or nothing mentality. If I can't do the full 3 hours, I won't even look at an English book today.
Which is the fundamental flaw. Because in learning any new skill, especially a language, Consistency is far more important than intensity. Doing nothing is the only real failure.
So, if dragging that massive suitcase up the hill is a guaranteed way to fail on a bad day, we obviously need a different strategy. And the lesson from Tim's English channel introduces a brilliant alternative.
The small goal.
Yes, the small goal. And the defining feature of this isn't just that it's small, it's that it is specifically designed for your absolute worst day.
That's the paradigm shift.
Yeah.
You stop planning for the days when you have endless energy and you start designing a habit that you can accomplish on a rainy Wednesday when you're completely exhausted.
It's a promise you can keep even when everything goes wrong. They give a really specific example of this in the lesson, calling it the one-page rule.
Right.
If your original heavy goal was reading an English book for an hour every night, your new bad day goal is to read just one single page before you go to sleep.
Think about the difference in cognitive load there. One page versus an entire hour.
I understand the contrast, but I have to push back on this a little bit.
Yeah.
When I first read that one-page rule, I actually kind of laughed. I mean, isn't one page way too easy?
That's what everyone thinks at first.
Well, yeah, if I'm holding a 300-page book and I read one page a day, it's going to take me almost a year to finish a single book. That feels painfully slow. It feels like I'm not even trying to challenge myself.
And that is the most common natural reaction people have to micro habits.
Yeah.
We are culturally conditioned to believe that if a task is easy, it lacks value.
Right. No pain, no gain.
Exactly. We think growth requires suffering. But the goal being too easy isn't a flaw. It's the entire point.
But why is making it easy so crucial, though? Don't we need to push our limits to actually learn?
You do eventually push your limits, but first you have to build the behavioral pathway. If the goal is incredibly easy, you eliminate the mental friction. You don't have to debate with yourself whether or not you have the energy to do it.
Because reading one page takes, what, 2 minutes?
Exactly. Even on your worst day, you cannot legitimately tell yourself you don't have 2 minutes. So you read the page. And because you read the page, you don't break the chain.
The chain of momentum.
Continuous momentum is the absolute secret to neuroplasticity, which is how your brain wires itself to learn a new language.
Right.
If you study for 3 hours on Monday, but then do nothing for 6 days, your brain tags that information as unimportant and starts to discard it.
Oh, wow. But if you interact with the language every single day, even just for 2 minutes.
You are constantly signaling to your brain that this information is vital for survival. The easy goal keeps the momentum alive.
Okay, I definitely see the logic in keeping the brain engaged, but let's look at the actual math of this, because it still feels like we're moving at a snail's pace.
Let's do the math.
If we aren't reading a whole page, maybe our small goal is just learning one single new English word a day. That takes maybe 30 seconds.
Just one word a day. It sounds almost invisible.
It does. But here is where it gets really interesting in the lesson. If you actually stick to that tiny 30-second habit every day, by the end of 1 year, you've learned 365 new words.
And 365 words is a massive milestone in language acquisition. That specific number is incredibly powerful.
Wait, what does knowing 365 words actually unlock for a learner? Because, to a native speaker, 365 sounds like a very small dictionary.
It might sound small, but it's the core foundation of communication. Language follows the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Right.
A very small percentage of words make up the vast majority of everyday conversation. With 365 high-frequency words, you are no longer helpless in that language.
You can navigate an airport.
Exactly. You can go to a restaurant, read a basic menu, and order food.
Yeah.
You can ask a stranger for directions if you're lost. You can even introduce yourself and start making a friend.
That's incredible. All of that life-changing interaction comes from an investment of 30 seconds a day. It really changes how you view progress.
It completely flips the script.
I was thinking about an analogy for this. We often talk about building habits like building a wall brick by brick, but that still feels like hard labor. To me, this math feels more like water carving a stone.
Ooh, I like that. That's a brilliant comparison.
Right. If you pour a bucket of water over a rock all at once, the water just splashes away and the rock doesn't change. That's our 3-hour Sunday study session.
Yep.
But if you have one tiny drop of water falling on the exact same spot on that rock every single day, eventually, that tiny drop carves a hole straight through solid stone.
It's the relentless consistency that holds the power, not the volume, that perfectly captures the dynamic. The water doesn't need to be heavy. It just needs to be constant.
Absolutely.
But, the math of the 365 words is really only half of the story here. The other half, which arguably dictates whether you'll keep going in year 2, is the emotional shift that happens inside you.
You mean the psychological impact of keeping promises to yourself?
Yes. Think about how we feel when we fail a massive goal. When you give up on your 3-hour study plan by Wednesday, what's the internal dialogue?
It's brutal. You feel guilty, you feel sad, and you start attacking your own identity. You tell yourself, I'm just lazy, I don't have discipline, I'm terrible at learning languages.
Exactly. You internalize the failure. But look at the opposite scenario. When your goal is to learn just one word, and you do it, you succeed.
Even if you're exhausted, you spend the 30 seconds and you check it off your list.
And that tiny success releases a healthy dose of dopamine. But more importantly, it rewires your self-image. You start telling yourself, I'm a person who follows through. I'm a consistent learner.
You prove to yourself that you can be trusted. And speaking of this psychological journey, I absolutely love a specific segment from Tim's English Channel lesson. They take a pause to do a vocabulary tour for their learners, highlighting 4 specific English words.
It's a really elegant way to teach vocabulary while reinforcing the lesson's theme.
Yeah. The 4 words they highlight are goal, daily, habit, and proud. And when I looked at those 4 words together, I realized they aren't just vocabulary, they are the exact chronological map of how to change your identity.
Well, walk us through how you see them connecting.
Well, it starts with the first word, goal. You define a specific, tiny destination you want to reach. The water dropping on the stone. Then comes the second word, daily. This is the mechanism. It's the commitment to doing it every single day, without exception, even when you're tired.
And if you apply the daily action to the small goal for long enough, you inevitably reach the third word.
Exactly. It becomes a habit. It transitions from something you have to force yourself to do into something you just do automatically, like brushing your teeth.
And the byproduct of establishing that habit.
That brings us to the 4th word. You feel proud. You look back at the 365 words you've learned, you look at the person you've become, and you feel genuine pride. Goal, daily, habit, proud. It's a complete psychological loop.
It's beautifully structured. The pride acts as the fuel that makes you want to set your next goal. So if we accept the math that tiny daily actions compound into massive results, and we understand the psychology that small wins build pride and momentum, the only thing left is the execution.
Right. How do we actually take this theory and put it into practice today? The source material breaks this down into a really practical action plan. And the first step they establish is that you must be highly specific.
You have to remove all ambiguity from your goal. Vague goals are the enemy of action.
Seriously, if I wake up and say, I'm going to practice my English today, my brain immediately panics. What does practice mean? Am I reading? Am I listening? Am I doing grammar drills?
Because you have to make all those decisions, it feels like work before you even start.
Exactly. You suffer from decision fatigue. You're carrying the heavy suitcase again just by trying to figure out what to do.
So instead, you made it hyper-specific. You say, I will listen to one 5-minute video on Tim's English channel. Or I will write one sentence in my journal.
You know exactly what the task is, and you know exactly when you are finished.
That specificity is crucial. But the second step of the plan is where the real behavioral magic happens. Once you have your specific, tiny goal, you need to create a daily routine anchor.
I found this part fascinating because my usual strategy for remembering to study is just setting a loud alarm on my phone.
And how does that work out for you?
Honestly, when that alarm goes off, 9 times out of 10, I'm busy doing something else. I just turn the alarm off, tell myself I'll do it later, and completely forget.
Phone alarms rely on external disruption, which is just so easy to ignore. An anchor relies on your existing internal programming.
Right.
The concept of anchoring means taking your new, fragile habit and tying it directly to an old, unbreakable habit that you already do every single day.
So you like piggyback on an existing behavior?
Exactly. You piggyback on it. Your brain already has thick, established synaptic connections for your daily routines. The source uses the perfect example, drinking your morning coffee.
Or maybe tea? Whatever your morning beverage is.
Right. Most adults have a hot drink every morning, and they do it entirely on autopilot.
You don't need a phone alarm to remind you to drink your coffee. You just crave it.
So you use that craving as the trigger.
Yeah.
You tell yourself, the moment I sit down with my morning coffee, I will learn my one new English word. The coffee itself becomes the reminder.
Oh, that makes sense.
Your brain connects the warmth of the mug and the smell of the coffee to the new habit of learning vocabulary.
That is so clever. You're borrowing the strength of a 5-year-old habit to support a 1-day-old habit. It integrates the learning into your actual life rather than forcing it to interrupt your life.
It's seamless.
Okay, so we've made the goal highly specific and we've anchored it to our morning coffee. What is the final piece of the puzzle?
The final step from the lesson might be the most counterintuitive, but it's absolutely vital for long-term success. You have to practice radical kindness toward yourself.
Radical kindness. Okay, I have to challenge this a bit. Doesn't radical kindness just turn into an excuse to be lazy?
How do you mean?
Well, if my goal is already tiny and I'm totally fine with missing a day, won't I just end up missing every day? It feels like letting myself off the hook way too easily.
That's a very common fear, but psychological research actually shows the exact opposite. What usually happens when you miss a day on a strict schedule.
Well, if I miss a day, my instinct is to get really angry at myself. I think, great, my perfect streak is ruined. I'm already falling behind. And honestly, because the perfection is broken, I usually just abandon the whole project.
Psychologists call that the what the hell effect.
The what the hell effect?
Yeah. It's the same reason a person on a strict diet might eat one small cookie, feel ashamed that they broke their rule, and say, what the hell, my diet is ruined, and then proceed to eat the entire box.
Oh, I've definitely been there.
Shame leads to avoidance. When you beat yourself up for missing a day of studying, you associate English with negative emotions, which makes you want to avoid it even more.
Wow. So punishing myself actually guarantees that I'll quit.
Yes, self-compassion or radical kindness leads to quicker recovery. Even with a tiny goal and a great coffee anchor, life happens. You'll get sick, you'll have to travel, you will eventually miss a day.
Right.
The rule from Tim's English channel is incredibly clear. When you miss a day, do not get angry. And whatever you do not start back from zero.
I really love that phrasing. Do not start from zero.
Because you aren't at zero. You haven't lost the 40 words you learned last month just because you missed Tuesday.
That's a great point.
If you trip and fall while walking down a sidewalk, you don't punish yourself by walking all the way back to your house to start the journey over. You just stand up, brush yourself off, and take the next step from exactly where you are.
You just pick up the habit again the very next day with your morning coffee. That takes so much pressure off the whole process. It acknowledges that we are human beings, not machines.
It reinforces the reality that consistency isn't about demanding perfection from yourself. Consistency is simply the act of never quitting entirely.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener? If we gather all these insights, the psychology of the 100% awake illusion, the math of compounding habits, and the power of habit anchors, the ultimate takeaway from Tim's English channel is profound. A small goal is not a weak goal. It's not a goal for lazy people. A small goal is a smart goal.
It's a highly strategic goal, precisely because it is designed to survive the reality of your busy, tiring life.
You don't need to be perfect to master English, or anything else for that matter. You just need to be relentlessly consistent. 30 seconds a day, every single day, will propel you so much further than a 3-hour burst of energy once a month.
But as with all great concepts, the true value of understanding how microhabits and anchors work only materializes when you put them into practice. Thinking about it just isn't enough.
Which brings us to our final challenge for you. We want to borrow the exact call to action that Tim and his co-hosts used to close out their lesson. We want to challenge you right now as you're listening to this.
Don't promise yourself that you're going to speak perfectly tomorrow. Put down the heavy suitcase.
Instead, ask yourself this. What is one highly specific, incredibly small goal you can set for your English learning today? A goal so tiny that you can accomplish it even if you're having a terrible day. And equally important, what daily routine are you going to anchor it to?
Maybe it's listening to an English podcast for 5 minutes while you brush your teeth. Maybe it's reading one sentence while you wait for your tea to brew. Find your specific action and your anchor.
We invite you to answer that question for yourself right now. Think of your small goal and your anchor. Better yet, if you are listening on a platform that allows comments, scroll down right now and type your small goal into the comments section. Tell us what you're committing to.
Yes, share it with the community.
Just by taking that tiny first step to define it, you're initiating that psychological loop. You are already taking action, and you should feel proud of that.
You're letting the first drop of water fall onto the stone.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us on this special, relaxed-paced deep dive. We hope this conversation was accessible, encouraging, and gives you a powerful new tool for your English journey.
Keep in mind that the heavy weight of demanding perfection from yourself is the greatest enemy of actual progress.
So, as you go back to your day, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. When you evaluate all the goals you've set for yourself in your life, whether it's learning English, improving your health, or advancing your career, how many of those goals are only designed to work on your absolute best days? And what would happen if you shrank them down until they were small enough to easily survive your worst?
It's a simple shift in perspective, but it changes absolutely everything.
Keep your goals small, practice radical kindness when you stumble, and keep moving forward one tiny step at a time. Until next time.